As expected, the hopeless so-called Prime Minister of Israel, Bibi Netanyahu, whom we refer to as Bibi Netanyahu or Bibi Netanyahu. Bibi Netanyahu announced that he is freezing all new building in Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria for 10 months. He did this as a gesture to the black Muslim Jew hater Barack Hussein Osama, who is pressuring Israel to commit national suicide. And this is indeed a step toward national suicide, God forbid. Because when you freeze construction of new building in the Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria, that is drying out those Jewish communities. You're drying them out. You're creating economic hardship and tragedy, and you're not permitting natural growth in those communities. There are currently over 300,000 Jews who live in Judea and Samaria. And their presence there is the only thing that stops the Israeli suicidal traitor government from establishing right now an independent PLO, Hamas, Fatah, Muslim terrorist state. If Israel allows the creation of a so-called Palestine state, which is a PLO, Hamas, Muslim terrorist state, if Israel allows that to take place, that is national suicide for Israel and the Jewish people, God forbid. Because then Israel returns to borders that are only 6 to 10 miles wide along her waistline, and Israel is in an indefensible situation. Not only that, Israel also brings on, God forbid, the terrible punishment and anger of God, because Israel is giving up the most sacred parts of the historic Jewish homeland, the God-given Jewish homeland. This is the heart and soul of the Jewish people, Judea and Samaria. Giving this up would be the ultimate Chilul Hashem, the ultimate desecration of God's name. And so we have to bring as many Jews there as possible. We want as many Jews to live there as possible, because the more Jews that live there, the more difficult it is to remove the Jews, and the more difficult it is to create an independent PLO, Hamas, Muslim terrorist state there. It's known as creating facts on the ground. There are currently over 300,000 Jews there, but that's not enough. We need far more in order to prevent this type of catastrophe from taking place. Instead of encouraging Jews to move there and to live there, Bibi Netanyahu, the traitor, and his traitor regime, his traitor government, are discouraging Jews and freezing all new Jewish building over there. Not only that, they're encouraging the Arabs from all over the Arab world to move there by trying to improve economic conditions for the Arab Muslim Nazis that live there now, which increases the Arab Muslim Nazi population there. There are currently about 1.8 million or 1.5 million or 1.8 million. There are different estimates, 1.5 million, 1.8 million Muslim Nazi Arabs that live there. And Bibi is improving economic conditions for them and improving their lives for them there, which is the opposite of what you should be doing. You should be making it as difficult as possible for them in order to pressure them and encourage them to leave. Instead, he is encouraging the Arabs to stay there and encouraging more Arabs to come in. And he is working to hurt the Jews and prevent the Jews from moving in there. This is what happens when you have the phony right in Israel in power. In Israel, the phony right is worse than the left. Now, in America, that's not necessarily true. In America, sometimes the Republicans are the lesser of the two evils against the Democrats, sometimes. But in Israel, the phony right is worse than the left. The Likud, the party known as Yisrael Beitenu, Israel is our home in Hebrew, of Avigdor Lieberman, Shas. These parties, the Jewish Home, the so-called Jewish Home Party, Habayit HaYehudi, which was formerly known as Hamafdal, this is the phony right, and they are worse than the left because they wind up making even bigger concessions than the left in the end. And we see it with this particular instance. Because this complete freeze on all new Jewish building in Judea and Samaria is something that even left-wing governments in Israel never did. The governments that define themselves as left-wing governments, Labor Party governments and left-wing governments of Yitzhak Rabin, Shimon Peres, Ehud Barak, Ehud Smolmert, all these left-wing governments never did a freeze like this. This is a far greater blow to Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria than anything the left ever did. Netanyahu is going much further and making much more painful and dangerous and suicidal concessions to the Arab Muslim Nazis that want to destroy Israel than the left ever made. And we see this pattern over and over again, that it is the phony right, the Likud governments of the phony right, that wind up doing more damage to Israel even than the left. And it's not that the left doesn't want to do things like this. The left-wing governments also want to do freezes and also want to hurt the Jews in Judea and Samaria and also want to surrender land. Because they're puppets of whoever is in the White House or whatever the European Union tells them, whatever the world tells them, they're puppets. They're run by multinational corporations in Israel who want Israel to surrender and who want Israel to commit suicide. And so the left-wing governments want to do these same types of things, but they're unable to, because what happens when a left-wing government tries to do something like this, freeze all new Jewish building in Judea and Samaria? What happens is the vast majority of the Israeli people oppose them. So they're unable to implement these plans. They announce plans like this, but they're unable to implement the plans because the vast majority of Israelis oppose them. Because Israeli Jews, when they see a left-wing prime minister do this, they say, oh, this is dangerous. Oh, here we go. This super dovish left-wing appeasing prime minister is endangering our security. We can't do this. So the whole country rises up and opposes them when the left-wing governments try to do this. And so they're unable to implement their programs. But the phony right, because they call themselves right-wing, even though they're phony, and even though they're also leftist, the phony right is able to get enough support among the Israeli people to implement these insane plans, which is why the phony right is more dangerous than the left. The phony right does more damage than the left. The phony right is more harmful than the left. The phony right in Israel is worse than the left. In Israel. In America, that's not necessarily true. By the way, the Arab Muslim Nazis condemned Bibi after he made this insane announcement that he's going to freeze all new Jewish building in Judea and Samaria for 10 months, which is a disastrous blow to the Jews in Judea and Samaria. The Arab Muslim Nazis said, we're not satisfied, we reject this. And they condemned Bibi for doing this, which shows that he didn't gain anything by doing this. He just hurts Israel in every way. And the Arab Muslim Nazis are never satisfied. They are what Harav Meir David Kahana Zecher Tzadik V'Kadosh Livracha Hashem Yikom Damo called the eternal malcontents. They're like the blacks in America. They are the eternal malcontents. No matter how much you give them, they are never satisfied. They are always biting the hand that feeds them. No matter how much you give them, they are never happy. The Muslims, the Arabs, the blacks are never happy no matter how much you give them. They always want more. They always complain. I mean, they've got a black Muslim animal in the White House, and they're still complaining about racism all the time. It's never enough. No matter you give them the whole country, they're still not satisfied. Which is another lesson that Jews in Israel and that whites in America and that people in Western countries should learn. And there's one final lesson here that we should learn that's very important. Our movement is the only movement that was right from the start. Again, on this issue, once again, we said that Bibi and the Likud are going to be worse than the left. We said Bibi and the Likud and Avigdor Lieberman, Yisrael Beitenu and Avigdor Lieberman, his party, which is supposed to be real right-wing, they voted in favor of the freeze. They voted in favor of this anti-Semitic freeze on all Jewish building. If you're a Jew, you're not allowed to build you're not allowed to have a new room in your house. You're not allowed to build anything anymore if you're a Jew. If you're an Arab, you can go building everywhere you want without any permit, without anything, do anything you want. Arabs can do anything they want. Jews are not allowed to build anymore. That's the new anti-Semitic rule of the anti-Semitic government of Israel. And Avigdor Lieberman and Yisrael Beitenu and Habayit HaYehudi, the Jewish Home, and all these other parties, they have no play. They stay in the government despite this. And Avigdor Lieberman and his party and Yisrael Beitenu actually voted in favor and support this insane move. We said from the start, we were the only ones who said from the start. How many videos did I do where I said in Hebrew that Bibi Netanyahu is worse than Ehud Smolmert? That Bibi Netanyahu is worse than Tzipora Spitzer, than Tzipi Livni? She calls herself Tzipi Livni. Her real name is Tzipora Spitzer, from the Kadima party, which is left-wing. The left-wing Kadima party could never do what Bibi is doing. They could never get away with it. They're also terrible. They're also dangerous. They're also evil. They're also suicidal. But Bibi and the Likud are worse. And we said this from the start, and once again we're being proven right.